The heart monitor screamed, sharp and piercing. Then suddenly, it flatlined. For a split second, time itself seemed to stop. Nurse Alina stood frozen beside the hospital bed, her gloved hands hovering in the air, her breath caught in her throat. No, this can't be happening," she whispered under her breath. The patient, Daniel Reeves, lay completely still. His chest no longer rose. His skin had taken on that pale, unnatural stillness that every nurse feared. Alina's training kicked in, but her body felt heavy, like it didn't belong to her anymore. "Code blue! Code blue!" she shouted suddenly, her voice cracking as she reached for the emergency button. The alarm echoed through the hallway. Footsteps approached rapidly. Nurses rushed past the glass doors, their faces tense, their movements sharp and mechanical. Alina grabbed the defibrillator paddles, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped them. "Charging, clear!" she yelled. The shock hit Daniel's body, causing it to jerk violently. Nothing. Just a flat line. A long, terrifying flat line. "Again!" someone shouted from behind her. Alina swallowed hard, her heart racing. "Charging, clear!" Another shock. Again, nothing. Her chest tightened. She could feel panic rising like a storm inside her. "Come on, please," she whispered, almost begging. At that moment, the doors burst open. Dr. Harris entered, his white coat slightly wrinkled, his face serious but calm, the calm of someone used to chaos. "What have we have?" he asked quickly, stepping toward the bed. "Male, mid-40s, car accident victim. He was stable, then suddenly," Alina's voice broke, "he crashed." Dr. Harris nodded once, already moving into position. "Step aside." Alina moved back, watching as he took over with practiced precision. He checked the pulse, listened to the chest, scanned the monitors. Flat line. He frowned slightly. "When did it start?" "Less than a minute ago." "All right, we're not losing him today." His confidence should have reassured her, but something felt wrong. Alina's eyes drifted to the patient's face. There was something about it. Not fear, not pain. Something else. Something familiar. Her heart skipped a beat. She leaned in closer, her brows furrowing as she studied Daniel's features more carefully, the sharp jawline, the faint scar near his eyebrow, the shape of his nose. A strange memory flickered in her mind. "I've seen him before," she murmured softly. Dr. Harris didn't look up. "Focus, nurse." But Alina couldn't shake the feeling. Her hands trembled again, this time not from panic, but from something deeper. "I'm serious," she whispered, almost to herself. The machines continued their lifeless tone. Beep. It echoed in her ears like a warning. Suddenly, a thought hit her like lightning. Her eyes widened. "No, it can't be." Without another word, she rushed toward the nearby computer terminal, her movements fast, almost frantic. "What are you doing?" Dr. Harris asked, slightly irritated. Alina didn't answer. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up hospital records, patient files, archived data. Her breathing grew faster with each passing second. Come on," she muttered. Behind her, the chaos continued. Commands, movements, machines. But to Alina, it all faded into the background. Then, she found it. Her entire body went still. On the screen was a file, a patient record. Name, Daniel Reeves. Her hand slowly moved to cover her mouth. "No, this isn't possible," she whispered. Her eyes scanned the details again and again, hoping, praying that she was wrong. But the words didn't change. Date of death, 3 years ago.
her vision blurred. Behind her, Dr. Harris shouted, "We're losing him!" Alina turned slowly, her face pale, her lips trembling. She walked back toward the bed, each step heavy, like she was walking through a nightmare. Dr. Harris looked up at her. "What is it?" Alina leaned closer to him, her voice barely audible. "Doctor." He frowned slightly. "Yes?" She hesitated for a moment, then whispered the words that would change everything. "I think this man is already dead." Dr. Harris froze. "What?" Alina swallowed hard, her voice shaking uncontrollably now. "I found his record. Same name, same face, same details." Dr. Harris stared at her, disbelief written all over his face. "That's impossible." "I thought so too," she said, her eyes filled with fear. "But the file says he died 3 years ago." For a moment, neither of them moved. The room, once filled with chaos and urgency, suddenly felt different, heavier, colder. The other nurses slowed down, sensing something was wrong. Even the machines seemed quieter. Dr. Harris looked back at the patient, then Alina. His confidence was gone now, replaced with something far more dangerous: doubt. And in that moment, the chaos faded. The urgency disappeared. The sounds of the hospital vanished. And suddenly, the entire room fell into a deep, unnatural silence.
Dr. Harris stepped back slowly, his eyes locked on the motionless body lying in front of him. The confidence he had just moments ago was gone, replaced by something far more fragile. "That's not possible." His voice, usually firm and controlled, now carried a slight tremor. Nurse Alina stood frozen beside him, clutching the file in her hand so tightly the paper began to crumple. I checked twice, then a third time," she said, struggling to steady her breathing. "The records, the identification number, even the facial recognition system, everything matches." Dr. Harris shook his head slowly, as if trying to physically reject what he was hearing. "No, there has to be a mistake. Files get mixed up all the time." But even as he said it, he didn't sound convinced. Alina swallowed hard. "This isn't just a name match," she said, her voice low and shaky. "It's him, exactly him." Dr. Harris turned his gaze back to the patient. Daniel Reeves lay completely still, his chest unmoving, his skin pale under the harsh hospital lights. But now, something about him felt different. Not just lifeless, but wrong. "What did the file say exactly?" Dr. Harris asked, his tone quieter now, more cautious. Alina took a shaky breath and opened the file again, her fingers trembling as she read. "Daniel Reeves, male, 46, admitted 3 years ago after a severe accident." Dr. Harris frowned slightly. "What kind of accident?" "A fall," Alina replied. "He was declared dead on arrival, massive internal injuries, no chance of survival." Dr. Harris's jaw tightened. "And this is confirmed?" "Yes." Silence fell between them again, the kind of silence that felt heavy, like it was pressing down on the room itself. Dr. Harris exhaled slowly, trying to regain control. "All right, let's think logically." He began pacing slightly, his mind racing. Same name doesn't mean same person. It could be a coincidence. Alina shook her head immediately. "I thought that too, but look at this." She pointed at the file. "There's a photo attached." Dr. Harris hesitated for a moment, then leaned in. His eyes scanned the image, and then he froze. It was the same man, same face, same scar above the eyebrow, same features, no difference. His breath caught in his throat. "That's—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Alina whispered, "It's him." Dr. Harris stepped back again, running a hand through his hair. "This doesn't make any sense."
He looked around the room as if expecting someone to explain it, but no one spoke. The other nurses stood still, their faces pale, their eyes darting between the doctor, the nurse, and the body on the bed. One of them finally whispered, "Are you saying he was dead before he came here?" Alina didn't respond, because she didn't know how to answer that question. Dr. Harris turned back toward the bed slowly. If he was declared dead 3 years ago, then who admitted him today? No one had an answer. The question hung in the air like a shadow. Alina's heart pounded in her chest. "I checked the admission logs," she said quietly. "He was brought in by paramedics after a car accident." Dr. Harris frowned again. "Did they identify him?" "Yes, with his ID." "And no one noticed anything unusual?" Alina shook her head slowly. "Nothing." The room felt colder now. Not physically, but something deeper, like the air itself had changed. Dr. Harris stepped closer to the patient again, his movements slower this time, more cautious. He stared at Daniel's face, studying every detail. "This can't be real," he muttered. Alina watched him carefully. "Doctor," she said softly, "what if it is?" He didn't respond immediately, because deep down he was starting to wonder the same thing. What if he never really died? Dr. Harris shook his head again, but weaker this time. "No. The report says he had no pulse, no brain activity, nothing." Alina looked at the patient again, and right now, he has nothing again. Those words sent a chill through the room. Dr. Harris glanced at the heart monitor, still flat, still silent, and yet, something didn't feel over. "Check his vitals again," Dr. Harris ordered suddenly. A nurse stepped forward hesitantly, placing her fingers on the patient's wrist. She waited and waited. Then slowly she looked up. Nothing. Dr. Harris clenched his fists. "This doesn't make any sense." Alina flinched slightly at his sudden outburst, but before anyone could say another word, something changed. A faint sound, almost too soft to notice. Beep. Everyone froze. Another beep. Beep. Alina's eyes widened. "Doctor." Dr. Harris turned slowly toward the monitor. The flat line was gone. A weak rhythm had returned. Beep, beep, beep. His heart was beating again. "No, that's not possible," Dr. Harris whispered in disbelief. Alina stepped back, her hands shaking uncontrollably. "We didn't do anything. No CPR, no shock, nothing. And yet, the dead man's heart had started beating on its own." The room filled with a new kind of fear. Not panic, not confusion, something darker. Dr. Harris stared at the monitor, unable to look away. "This shouldn't happen," he whispered. Alina whispered, almost inaudibly, "Maybe he never really gone." But even as she said it, she felt a terrible truth creeping in. What if he had come back?
"Check it again," Dr. Harris ordered, his voice sharp but unsteady. The room snapped back into motion, but the energy had changed. No longer focused, now uncertain. Alina nodded quickly, gripping the file as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. "I'll verify everything again," she said, already turning toward the door. As she stepped out into the hallway, the noise of the hospital rushed back. Footsteps, distant voices, machines beeping. But inside her mind, there was only one thought. He was dead. She hurried down the corridor, her breath uneven, her heart pounding against her chest. "This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense," she kept whispering. Meanwhile, inside the room, Dr. Harris stood alone with the patient. The others had stepped back, watching from a distance, too afraid to get close. The monitor continued its slow, uneven rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. Each sound echoed louder than it should. Dr. Harris moved closer to the bed, his steps cautious now. Just moments ago, he had been in control. Now, he felt like a man stepping into something he didn't understand. He leaned in, placing his fingers gently on Daniel's wrist. A pulse. Weak, but real. He pulled his hand back slightly, staring at it as if it had betrayed him. "No, this isn't possible," he murmured. He had seen death hundreds of times. He knew what it looked like. And this man had been gone, completely gone. So how? Before he could finish the thought, a slight movement. Dr. Harris froze instantly. He slowly turned his gaze back to the patient. Daniel's fingers had twitched, just barely, but enough to be real. Harris took a step back. "No," he whispered. He leaned in again, closer this time, watching carefully. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, another twitch, longer this time, unmistakable. Harris's heart began to race. He glanced quickly at the monitor. The rhythm was still there, slow but steady. Beep, beep. He swallowed hard. This doesn't make any sense. Suddenly, the patient's chest rose sharply, as if he had just taken a deep breath after being underwater. Harris jumped back in shock. "Get back!" he shouted instinctively. The nurses in the room flinched, stepping further away. Daniel's body shifted slightly on the bed. Not fully conscious, but no longer lifeless. Alive. Harris stared, unable to move for a moment. "I checked him," he said under his breath. "There was nothing." Another breath, this time slower, heavier, like his body was remembering how to live. At that exact moment, the door burst open. Alina rushed back in, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Doctor!" She stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes locked onto the patient. Her entire body froze. She couldn't finish. Dr. Harris turned toward her slowly. "He's breathing." Alina stepped closer, her legs trembling beneath her. "That's not possible," she whispered. "I know." They both stood there staring at the man who should not be alive. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. Alina slowly moved to the monitor, checking the readings again. "Pulse, present," she said, her voice barely steady. "Heart rate, low but stable." Harris ran a hand over his face. "We didn't restart him. No CPR, no shock, nothing. Nothing." The realization hit them both at the same time. He came back on his own. Suddenly, Daniel's eyelids fluttered. Alina gasped. "Doctor!" Harris stepped closer again, his fear now mixed with something else, curiosity. The eyelids moved again, slowly, painfully, then opened. Daniel's eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, wide, unfocused, but open. Alina instinctively took a step back. "Mr. Reeves?" Dr. Harris said carefully. No response, just staring. Then, very slowly, Daniel's eyes shifted from the ceiling to Dr. Harris. The moment their eyes met, Harris felt a cold chill run down his spine. There was something wrong in that gaze, something empty yet aware, like he was looking at someone but also through them. Daniel's lips parted slightly. A faint sound escaped, barely a whisper. Alina leaned forward slightly despite her fear. "I remember," Daniel said, his voice weak, broken, and distant. Harris froze. "Remember what?" he asked, his voice lower now. Daniel's breathing became uneven. His eyes widened slightly, as if something inside him had just awakened. He whispered. His fingers twitched again. "They shouldn't have brought me back." Alina felt her heart drop. Harris stared at him, speechless. "What do you mean?" he asked, though part of him didn't want to hear the answer. Daniel's eyes filled with something that looked like pure fear. Not pain, not confusion, fear. The kind of fear that came from seeing something no human should ever see.
His lips trembled as he whispered again, "I wasn't alone." The room fell completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Because in that moment, they all felt it.
Alina stood frozen, her breath shallow, her fingers gripping the edge of the bed as if she might collapse without it. The words echoed in her mind again and again. I wasn't alone. A chill ran through her entire body. Dr. Harris tried to steady himself, but even his years of experience couldn't prepare him for this moment. He looked at Daniel, searching for logic, for reason, anything that could explain what was happening. But there was nothing normal about this. "Mr. Reeves," Dr. Harris said carefully, forcing calm into his voice, "you've been in an accident. You're safe now." Daniel's eyes snapped toward him, sharper this time. "No," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You don't understand." Alina felt her throat tighten. Dr. Harris stepped closer, trying to maintain control of the situation. "Help me understand then," he said, softer now. Daniel's breathing became heavier, uneven. His eyes darted around the room as if he was looking for something, or someone. "They saw me," he said suddenly, his voice trembling. "They know I came back." Alina instinctively stepped back, her heart racing uncontrollably. "Who?" she asked, before she could stop herself. Daniel's gaze slowly shifted toward her. For a second, it felt like he didn't recognize her at all. Then his lips parted again. "They're still here." The room seemed to grow colder instantly. Alina wrapped her arms around herself, trying to fight the sudden wave of fear. "This isn't real," she whispered to herself. Dr. Harris quickly turned to her. "Alina, stay focused." But even he couldn't ignore the tension in the air now. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. Daniel suddenly winced, his body tensing as if in pain. "Something's wrong," Alina said quickly, stepping forward again despite her fear. Dr. Harris checked the monitor, heart rate rising, breathing unstable. "What are you feeling?" he asked. Daniel grabbed his arm suddenly. His grip was weak, but desperate. "They're coming," he said, his voice trembling violently. "Who is coming?" Dr. Harris asked, his tone sharper now. But Daniel didn't answer directly. Instead, his eyes filled with terror as he stared past them, into the corner of the room. Alina slowly turned her head in that direction. Nothing was there, just empty space. But the way Daniel was looking at it, it didn't feel empty. "Stop it," Alina whispered, her voice breaking. Dr. Harris quickly stepped between her and the corner, trying to regain control. "There's nothing there," he said firmly. But Daniel shook his head weakly. "You can't see them," he whispered. "But they can see you." Alina felt tears forming in her eyes. "This is insane," she said under her breath. Dr. Harris took a deep breath, trying to ground himself. "This is trauma," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "He's confused, hallucinating." But even as he said it, he didn't fully believe it. Alina suddenly remembered something. "The file," she said quickly, turning toward the counter. She grabbed the document she had brought earlier, flipping it open with shaky hands. "Doctor, look at this." Dr. Harris hesitated, then stepped closer. She pointed at a specific section. "Cause of death." He read it silently. Then again. And again. His expression slowly changed. "This says," he started, his voice low, "cardiac arrest following severe trauma." Alina nodded. "Yes." Dr. Harris looked back at Daniel. "That means his heart stopped, just like now." Alina's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's happening again." The weight of that truth hit them both at the same time. 3 years ago, he died this way, and now it was repeating. Daniel suddenly gasped, his body jerking slightly. "Don't let them take me," he cried weakly.
Alina rushed to his side. "We're here. You're not alone." But Daniel shook his head frantically. "No, you don't understand." His grip tightened slightly on Dr. Harris's arm. "When I died, I didn't go somewhere peaceful." The room fell completely silent again. Alina held her breath. Dr. Harris didn't move. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he whispered. It was dark, so dark. A tear rolled down his cheek. And something was there, waiting. Alina couldn't stop the tears now. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Daniel's voice broke completely. "It followed me back." A deep, suffocating silence filled the room. Dr. Harris slowly let go of Daniel's hand, stepping back slightly. He glanced at Alina. For the first time since this started, he truly looked afraid. Because this was no longer just a medical mystery. It was something else, something they couldn't explain, something they couldn't control. The machines continued their soft, steady beeping, but now every sound felt like a warning. And deep down, both of them knew, whatever Daniel had brought back with him, it hadn't left.
Suddenly, without warning, Daniel's eyes snapped fully open. Not slowly, not gently, but violently, like someone waking from a nightmare they could not escape. Alina gasped, stumbling a step backward, her hand flying to her mouth. "Doctor!" she cried out, her voice breaking. Dr. Harris turned instantly, his heart pounding hard in his chest. Daniel was staring straight ahead now, his eyes wide, unblinking, and filled with something terrifyingly intense. It wasn't confusion, it wasn't weakness, it was awareness. "Mr. Reeves," Dr. Harris said carefully, stepping closer despite the fear creeping into his voice, "can you hear me?" Daniel didn't respond right away. His gaze slowly shifted from the empty ceiling to Dr. Harris. The moment their eyes met, Dr. Harris felt a cold wave run through his body. There was something unnatural in that stare, something that didn't belong in a man who had just come back from death. Daniel's lips parted slightly. His voice, when it came, was weak, but carried a strange weight. I remember." Alina stood frozen, her legs trembling beneath her. "Remember what?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Daniel's breathing grew uneven now, his chest rising and falling rapidly. They told me not to come back." Dr. Harris frowned, trying to remain logical. "Who told you?" Daniel's eyes flickered with panic. "I don't know," he whispered. "I couldn't see them clearly." His hands began to shake on the bed. "But I could feel them." Alina's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. "What did they say?" she asked, despite every part of her wanting to stay silent. Daniel's face twisted in fear. "They said, if I leave, something would come with me." A deep silence fell over the room. Dr. Harris felt his throat go dry. "That's not possible," he said quickly, almost defensively. "You were unconscious. This is just your brain reacting to trauma." But Daniel shook his head weakly. "No, it wasn't a dream." His eyes filled with tears. "It felt real, more real than this." Alina stepped forward slowly, her voice soft but trembling. "You're safe now. You're here with us." Daniel turned his head slightly toward her. For a moment, his expression softened. Then, suddenly, his entire body tensed. His eyes widened again, but this time, not at them, at something behind them. Alina froze instantly. "Don't," Daniel whispered urgently. "Don't turn around." Her breath caught in her throat. Dr. Harris felt his heart slam against his chest. "What is it?" he asked slowly. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. It's right there.
Alina's eyes filled with tears as she stared straight ahead, too afraid to move. "I said don't turn around!" Daniel suddenly cried, his voice rising in panic. The machines beside him began to beep faster. Beep, beep, beep. His heart rate spiked. Dr. Harris quickly grabbed his arm. "Calm down, you're going to hurt yourself." But Daniel shook his head violently. "You don't understand. It's watching you." Alina let out a small sob, unable to hold it in anymore. "I can't do this," she whispered. Dr. Harris turned to her quickly. "Stay with me, Alina." But even he felt it now, that strange, suffocating presence, like someone or something was standing in the room with them, watching, waiting. Daniel suddenly reached out again, grabbing Dr. Harris's sleeve with surprising strength. "Listen to me," he said, his voice breaking. "If it takes me again, don't bring me back." Dr. Harris froze. "What?" "Promise me," Daniel whispered, tears streaming down his face. "What are you talking about?" Alina shook her head, unable to process his words. "They need a way back," Daniel trembled as he spoke. "And I'm the door." A deep chill fell in the room. Dr. Harris tried to speak, but no words came out. Because deep down, a terrible thought was forming. What if this wasn't just fear? What if it was a warning? Suddenly, the lights above them flickered slightly. Once, twice, then stabilized. But the damage was done. Alina gasped softly. Daniel closed his eyes tightly, as if bracing himself. "They're getting closer," he whispered. Dr. Harris looked around the room slowly. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything felt different. He turned back to Daniel. "Stay with us," he said firmly. But Daniel didn't respond. His grip loosened slightly. His breathing slowed. Too quickly. "No," Alina whispered. The monitor began to change again. Beep. Pause. Beep. Longer pause. Dr. Harris's eyes widened. "Something's wrong." Daniel's chest rose once more, then fell. And in that moment, everyone in the room felt it. Whatever was happening, it wasn't over.